a new project for me. Okay, and then I'm going to go into my project, which is demo forms 2. I'm going to turn off the volume on this thing. Okay. All right, so now that I'm in the project, I'm going to open up the project. It looks like this. I'm going to go ahead and add my binding.pry so I can use it later. So it's gem.pry. And then from here, I can then bundle install to make sure I have it. Okay, so now I have pry. Now I'm going to make a model. Okay, I'm going to make a user. Okay, so user, I'm going to make first name :string, last name :string. Okay, so this is generating a model for the user, and I have the 2 attributes of the first name and the last name. Okay, do that. Okay, I'm going to make some seed data now. So what do I need to do first?
Migrate.
Migrate, yes, very good. So rakedb migrate. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my seed file to make the seed data. Okay, I'm going to do like v1 equals user.create first name :string, last name :string. Okay, and I'll make a second user, and I'll make a third user, and I'm just going to call them string2, string2, string3. Okay, rakedb seed. This will create all my users. Right, okay, so now if I go to Rails console, I should be able to see all my users. Okay, they're all there. Okay, so I confirm that. So I have my seed data. Okay, now I'm going to create a controller. So Rails G controller. I'll create a users controller. Okay, this time I'm going to create index method, show method. Sure, I'll make a show method. A new and a create. Okay, so I'm going to make all 4 of those. Okay, so I have all those. Okay, if I go to my routes.rb, I have all of these paths. Okay, now when you do Rails G controller, right, it's just going to. I looked into this a little bit, right. Was talking about like, the show method should not look like this, right? It should be. I need to have it be like :ID and stuff, right? So this is just look when you put it in these parameters Rails G controller. That is just what's going to happen. So you're going to. This will create the right show.html.erb file for you, but then you're just going to have to go and manually update it in order to create like the :ID and stuff like that. Okay, if you wanted to use that route, there is actually another method called like Rails G like scaffolding controller. Okay, that I think that will create some of the routes more of the stuff you need. However, the problem with that is that they use Rails like named routes. Okay, so which is different from how we segment the routes. It's like basically shortened format of like a different syntax. Okay, so and also takes care of doing a lot of stuff for you. So just like we talked about with scaffolding last time, we're not going to use that one. Okay, so that's something you can explore later after you guys are pretty comfortable with doing it with a more standard HTML way. But that is their sort of workaround basically. Okay. So I'm actually not going to use the show route right away. I'm going to create a post route though. Okay, so what this is doing is, I'm going to be submitting a form. Okay, so when I submit my form, it needs to be a post request rather than a get request, and I want to set up this route to handle that creation of a new user. Okay, so I can also grab my cheat sheet. Okay. So here. Okay, and then in my cheat sheet, I have the routes already, right? So I know that I basically want to use this route. Okay, so I'm going to stick this one here. Oops. What did I do? Okay. Okay, so this will be for creating a new user. This is for showing all my users. Okay, save it. I don't know why this is here. I don't know why I accidentally pressed. Okay. All right. So before we actually go ahead with the form, though, I want to just make sure the server is running correctly, and also that I'm able to display all of my user information. Okay. So how do we start the server? Rails S. Okay. All right. So I start the server. And you know this is something you may want to test earlier actually, but I'm testing it now. Okay, and if I localhost 3000, you can see this page. Okay, and then if I go to /user/index, I should be able to see the index page. Okay, so my default index page. Okay, now on this index page, I want to make sure I'm displaying all of my user information. Right, so this is why we create the C data to make sure we can build this out, make sure everything is working. So I can open up my index.html.erb, okay, and then I can add each of the users. So now how would I add each of these users that I created? So I have all these users in my user model now, right? So how do we display like the name, the first name for all of them? User.first name. So if you have the user object, you'll loop through everything. All right. So what's the first step in doing this? Yeah. So I mean, if I did user.firstName right now, right, or user.firstName, right? Do we know what user is at this point? No. Okay. So how do we grab the user? Query for the controller, right? Okay. So you have to go to your controller, right, which is an app/controllers/users controller, okay? And then which of these methods am I going to modify? Index method, okay? And then what do I want to write to query for it? Okay. So this gives me all the users, and I'm storing it in, what is this called? Instance variable, yeah. Instance variable, right? Instance variable. Instance variable containing all of the users, okay? And so then once I have it here, what do I need to do in order for it to be available here? Do I need to do anything? Or can I just use @users here? No? Don't remember? What? Okay, yeah, yes. Okay, so I can do that, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this will print out all the users, right? Okay, so let's see what this looks like. Okay, there we go. All right, there's all my users. Okay, so what do I need to do to actually get the first name to show up? So @users.firstName. Okay. What does this mean? Undefined method first name for active record relation this. What does undefined method first name mean? It's not a method of the object. Yeah. So it's saying that there is no first name method on this @users object, right? Okay, so what is @users right now? What kind of, it's an object, yeah. What kind of object is it? Is it a user object? Yeah. What data type are we getting back when we run this method? @users equals user.all. All right. How would we? How might we find out what data type this is? Huh? Print it? Yeah. Okay. So we printed it, but it just kind of gives us. All right. You could print it. Oh, that's what printing it does. Puts at users. Okay. I'm gonna put another statement here too. Puts hello. Okay, so we refresh the page. Okay. Okay, so let's see what our terminal said. My hello. Okay, so it put this. Okay. So you might be able to tell by looking at this, but unless you kind of already know, you probably wouldn't be able to tell. So I think the other way to do this would be to use what? If we didn't use print, how would we examine what @users is? Instead of using print, return it. Okay, we can use the debugging tool I showed you guys last time, the binding.pry. Okay, so does anyone remember how to use it at all? Right here. Okay, we put binding.pry. Okay, so if you guys remember, I installed the pry gem earlier. Okay, so we have access to this breakpoint system, right? Okay, so now we can run binding.pry, and that will create a break. Okay, and I'm specifically putting it after @users so I can examine what @users is. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, so I load this. Okay, what do I need to do next with the binding.pry gem? I go to my console. Okay. All right, and there we go. Okay, so now I can look at @users by doing this. Okay, so what is @users? What data structure is this? It's an array. You know, does an array have the .firstName method? No. Okay. Yeah. So how do we print each of the first names given the array? Yeah. Okay. So I can do that. So how do you get the how would we got this the first name of this first person in this array? At users of 1. Okay, is the first person? 0. Yeah, 0 index is the first person. Okay, and then? And then what?
1.
And then 1? Okay. All right, what is @users of 0 going to return us? The first user object, right? Okay, this is an array, right? So it's just the first index in the object. That's this one. Okay. All right. So we do this. Okay, that's that. Now, how do I get the first name given this? Now, what kind of data structure? I mean, this is an object. Okay. So how do we read the first name from this object? Yeah, first name. Okay. What? It's a method of that object, yeah. It's the method of the object. Yeah. So you can do .firstName. You could also do square bracket colon first name. Do the same thing. Okay. And so that's how we read from that particular piece of data. Okay. Put first name inside the bracket. Inside the what? Yeah, there's two different ways to do it. Okay, you can use the .firstName method, or you can put square bracket symbol first name. Okay. All right. Either way will work. All right. So that's how we get the user's first name. Okay. So let's we know what type of object it is now. Okay. So given that it is this type of object, okay, @users, what type of data object is this? An array. Okay. Given that it is an array, how do we want to display all of the first names of all the users? I'm going to loop through it. Okay, so how do we write our loop? Take a guess. Okay. And then what else? Do I write it like that, or do we need anything else? Or Yeah, square bracket, percentage sign, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then what? Yeah, it does. Yeah. So you can do for IN users. That's fine. Yes. Okay. Anything else? Yeah, you gotta end it with an end. Okay. That's how you end in for a loop. Now I would recommend you probably not call it I, but call it user. Each one's a user. Okay. All right. So go to the page. All right. What's wrong with this? Undefined local variable or method users. Why don't we have users here? Yeah, you can do the @ sign, right? Because it's an instance variable, right? So it's called an instance variable in here at users, and then you still need an instance variable over here too. Okay, all right, so let's try it again. Here we go. All right, get all our users. Okay. All right, so what if I wanted to add the last name? How to do that?
Same practice.
Mm-hmm.
User
Yeah. Something like that. Okay. All right, so that's how we display our information from the models into the views. Okay. All right. So we have our information displaying correctly, right? Now we're going to add our post requests. Okay. So which of these routes should handle creating a new user? Where should my form go for creating a new user? Huh? Yeah, new route. That's correct. Okay. So open new.html.erb, and I need to add a form. Okay. So I'm going to take the syntax for the form from my cheat sheet. Okay. So the first thing you need is open it with the form. Okay. So I'm going to take this first. Okay. You don't want this. Is this the right route? What is the route for creating a new user supposed to look like? Is this the right route? What I have here? No. What? Yeah, users.create. Okay, so what the form action, right? Is this correct for this route that I have here? No. Okay, what is the route supposed to look like? The slash users, right? That's the post request. That's for users pound create. Okay, so this one, we need to get rid of this stuff. Okay. All right, so that's our form. Okay, and then of course I need to have a closing tag for the form, right? Okay, and then I'm also going to add a field. Okay. All right, so this field looks maybe a little odd to you guys. Okay, you'll see this user square bracket name, closing square bracket. Okay, the reason it's named like this is because this way, if you have to add a whole bunch of fields, they will, if they all have this structure, it'll get stored together in one dictionary under a user dictionary. Okay, so it'll be like a user first name, user last name, and stuff like that. Okay, so this is the recommended format so that it can get stored that way. So I'll show you how it's stored in a second, but just know that user square bracket with whatever it's called is the recommended format because that allows us to grab everything together as one dictionary. Okay. All right, so I have this, and then I also need a submit button. Okay, so I got this, and I'll put that here. Okay, should this say update? What should it say? Submit. Yeah, create or submit. Okay, so I'll call it create. All right. All right, so this is just like, otherwise it looks like a normal form, right? That you guys are pretty familiar with at this point. Okay. The only thing that is also a little different is you need to add this authenticity token. Okay, so authenticity token prevents a security risk called cross-site request forgery. Okay, and so having it here ensures that the form was generated by the website that sent the form. Okay, so it's not like another site, that's like submitting a different form that pretended to be your user. Okay, so that's why you need to add this authenticity token. Okay, this part you'll notice is in the less than percent equal thing. Okay, that means that Rails is actually going to generate the specific number for you of the authenticity token. All right, so we do this. Okay, and then now we have our form. So we can, how do we see our form? What path do we go to? Slash users. Nope. Huh? Yeah, slash new, right? Right. So we look at our routes. If we're ever unsure, we can look at our routes. Okay. And then, I mean, I guess this is just defaulting. This is not really, but this is the route, right? Get users slash new, okay, for our users new method. Okay. So we go here. Okay, and there's our form. It will go to post. That's correct. Okay. Now, how do I confirm that it's going to post correctly after I hit the submit button? You can print something, yeah. Okay. Rather than printing something, I'm going to use binding.pry again. Okay. I recommend that if you guys have not tried out binding.pry, at least try it out. Okay. I know that there's usually some like, oh, I'm not familiar with it. Therefore I don't really want to try it. I'm just looking at puts, right? But once you go through that small hump of installing it and using it, I think you will find it is more useful. Okay. So for examining a lot of things. Okay. So I want you guys to try using that if you have not yet. Okay. So here, if I go to the controller, which method is going to get hit after I hit submit the form button? Great. Okay. So I would put what here to create a big breakpoint? Okay. All right. I'm actually going to show you guys what happens if you forget to include the CSRF token. Okay. Authenticity token. I'm going to delete this for now. Save it. Okay. And then I'm going to refresh the page. Okay, I'll put chain 4. Okay, if I hit create now, okay, it actually goes here. Action controller, invalid authenticity token. Okay, so if you guys see this, you know that it's because you forgot the CSRF token. Okay, so the other way you can tell that you forgot it is if you look at this form, right? It just has the form, the inputs, and the form, right? This is just the form in the inspect element, okay? Once you add the authenticity token, refresh the page, okay, you'll see this input type equals hidden name authenticity token line, okay? Right, so that is what allows the form to submit without getting that error message. Okay, so now I'm going to try going.
How do you see if it actually is a cross?
How do you see if it is?
What do you see if it is a cross? And what happens? Is it only the person, the bot or whatever it is, did it see something?
Yeah, so I think what happens with that is that
Do you care?
I mean, you don't have to do anything else for it beyond just the authenticity token. That's as far as you're concerned as a web developer. With cross-site request forgery, what happens is another site submits the form data to you, I think. And they will basically, I think it can, I need to double check actually, but I think it's like, another site sends the request without this authenticity token, okay? And then it will, if you don't have this protection, and if Rails didn't also prevent it, then like someone else could end up submitting the form data rather than the user, basically. Yeah. Okay. So if I hit this now, okay, I can give you more information on that later. I have to double check it a little bit, but yeah, okay. If I hit create now, okay, then I will not get that error, okay. And what is happening now? I'm aligning the right, yeah, that's why it's still spinning, okay. All right, so if I go into my terminal, I can see this, okay. If I hit, how do I see all the form submitted data? Yeah. Huh? Yeah. Well, how do I look at everything that's submitted through that form submission? Yeah, all the user information. Yeah, like from here. Like, how do I grab it all? Yeah. At users params. Yeah. Where at user instance variable only exists for that method, right? We're on a different method now, right? Because we are on a new request, right? Because we're on a post. The at user existed for that initial get request, but now we're making a post request, right? So new request, instance variable is no longer there. Okay. So what we have available to us is the form data inside this params. Okay. So where is this form data? How do I get just the user's form data? This is a whole bunch of stuff, right? It has an authenticity token, all this kind of stuff, right? So how do I get just the user data? Huh? All right, so what, yeah, this is a dictionary, right? So how do we read something from the dictionary? Yes. All right, and what is our key for our user? Yeah, parameter user. Okay, square bracket, user. Okay, this is our dictionary of our user. Okay, all right. So now if I'm going to create a user from here, okay, how do I create a user using this information? I'm in the console. Because I'm in binding.pry, I'm already in the console. User create, okay. And then yeah, so that's a good idea. We will take a look at that in a second. Okay, so let's do it without doing that. How would we do it? Okay, and then what do I put here? Huh?
Take it out of the params.
Yeah, how would I grab it out of the params? Okay, and then for the last name? Yeah, last name, colon, params, square by colon, user, colon, last name. Okay, if this confuses you, you could also have this in like double quotes. Okay. Okay, just symbols and the strings are interchangeable. Okay, for the most part. All right, so that should. Oh, I forgot the little quote. Oh no. Okay, I screwed that up by having no closing quote. Oh, let's not do this again. All right, let's start the server again. Method. Let's create again. Stuck. Okay. So that should create a user. Okay, works, right? Okay, so this is one way to create your objects. Okay, you can specify them one at a time, right? First name is this, params user, first name, that kind of stuff. Okay, you just grab it all from the params object. Okay. But yeah, you would write this command in the controller, right? Like I would copy this and I would put it, I would put it like here. Okay, and then it would do that. Okay. Now, as Masato was mentioning, right? Params user is already a dictionary, okay, right? Which is very similar to what we just put in here: first name, params, first name, stuff, right? So you might be able to do user.create params user. Okay, it would be much simpler, right? You just take all the params that were passed in, use them as a dictionary to go ahead and create the user object, right? Okay. This used to be how Rails works. Okay, you used to be able to just do this. Okay, so but now if I run this, I get this error. Okay, because Rails built a big interface. Okay, burden attributes error. Sanitize for mass assignment. Does anyone have any idea what this means? Or why there might be this error? No, not quite. Okay, all right. So the reason for this, okay, is that if you do params user, right, you're taking in anything from the form that the user put in with that specific name. Okay, someone could go and inspect element, insert their own input tag, right, and then insert an additional like form element attribute. And if you had your application built like this, you would take that attribute as well, even if you didn't want to assign it. For instance, if your user had an admin field, okay, if you're creating users, you're not trying to set the admin to anything, right? And you don't have an admin field in your input field. But if they guessed that you had an admin field, okay, and they guessed the name of it, they could add that input field into the form and set it as admin, right? And then that would get submitted to your form, and then suddenly it would create a user with the admin field. Okay, so this is what's called creating things this way is what's called mass assignment, right? Which is what it says here. Okay, because you're assigning in mass, right? Like all of the attributes that can pass to you through the form. Okay, and it's dangerous because people can inject other form input fields that you are not trying to create a user for. Okay. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? Okay, right. So Rails decided to make a workaround for this, right? Because I mean, they don't really want to name them all either, because that's a lot of extra text to have to type. Okay, so what Rails does is it creates this concept called whitelisting. Okay, so and it created a special method for that. Okay, so the way that works is instead of having to name them all, or instead of doing this directly, you add a method for whitelisting. Okay, so that method looks like this. Okay, so you add this method here in your controller. Okay, and then what this does is when the params are submitted from a form for these routes, okay, a user is required as one of the objects, okay, one of the inputs, okay, and then you're permitting only these specific fields. Okay, so you're whitelisting those fields, right? So I permit first name, I permit last name. Okay, I do not permit admin, right? And so that way, if someone tries to submit admin, it will get rejected. But my first name and last name, as they are submitted as part of this user params thing, then it will work. Okay, and the way that you use this is you run user.create user_params. Okay, so user_params is the name of this method. Okay, and it is requiring a user and it's permitting these. Okay, and that will go ahead and grab all of the things from params and allow those basically to pass through. Okay, so I'm not sure if this will work right now because I'm going to restart the server. But oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah, I think I need to restart the server first. Okay.
Is there a reason why, like in Django, the server would restart after you make changes versus Rails server that needs to manually restart?
The server would. Oh, there is a setting that you can make it so that Rails server auto restarts. You can install something. Actually, I may have only needed to exit that one pass through of buying that pry, and just run it again. I don't know if I need to restart server, but it's pretty easy to restart it. So just restart it. All right, so let's go back to here. Refresh my page again. Okay, now I will create this user. Okay, I am again hitting this method, okay? And now I can even in my binding.pry console, right? I can also call this method user params. Okay, so I could do user params, and now we'll put the user. Okay, and so again, I would normally just copy this code into here and use that to create my user. Okay, without still having to specify. It doesn't matter too much when you only have like 2 fields, right? But when it gets much longer, if you're creating a form that has like a lot of information, it makes a lot more sense to have something like this. Okay.
You still have to list them all.
You still have to list them all. It doesn't save you that much in some ways. Yes, that's true. Though this is reusable, right? Like I can reuse the user params for the create method as well as for like an update method, right? If you ever using somewhere else and stuff. Okay. All right. So that's that. That's whitelisting. Okay. All right. I want to also briefly mention that if you are using the delete or patch method, right? Delete is for you're submitting a form for deleting a user, right? Or some sort of object resource. Or patch is for updating. You're also going to have to include one of these 2 lines, okay? Otherwise, they're both normally post requests in the field, okay? But you have to add, like for instance, if I wanted to do a delete, I would put this here. Okay, and I would not need any of these, I guess. Okay, so this way it knows that it's actually specifically a delete path that matches to the post. Okay, because there is not you cannot just direct it by the delete. You do need to create a delete route, but how do you hit the delete route? Okay, yeah, you could use a link to hit the delete route, but then that would not be quote unquote RESTful because you're using a GET request for something that's actually making a change to the server. So ideally, a delete route should be a post request. Okay, so that's why they do it this way. Though you can do it with a GET route, which is what you guys have been doing. Okay, all right. So I think that's it. All right, any questions? So I'll go back to this page, see if anyone has any questions.
Did you already send that?
Yeah, that's the same sheet you guys sent out like the second day or something. Okay, you'll notice that this method is private. Okay, right? I should not have to call user params from outside of just calling it like within the create method or update method. Okay, so then I can afford to make it private. Okay, and then what else? You will also notice that when you first call params, there is this thing that says permitted false. Okay, this is a signal that you need to use this user params thing to whitelist something. Okay, this requirement that it will throw this error if you don't whitelist is actually a setting in Rails. It's a setting by default in Rails, which is why it's permitted false. But if this said permitted true, then you could just pass in user square bracket params. And you could set it to true, and it would work that way. But by default, they don't allow you to do that because you're opening up a security risk if you do that. Okay.
What's stopping somebody from going to inspect elements, copying the same token that shows up there and making it more valuable?
So they can see they can make. They can do that, but that way they're submitting their own form data if they do that. Right? I think cross-site request forgery is to make sure that someone else doesn't pretend to be another user to send their form data. I need to double check on cross-site request forgery. It's been a little while since I looked at it. Yeah. Stop recording.